The High Court in Johannesburg has postponed the ruling on the application for leave to appeal filed by convicted murderer Ntuthuko Shoba. He was found guilty of orchestrating the murder of his 8-month pregnant girlfriend, Pule, back in 2020. Now, Shoba is now serving life imprisonment. You'll remember the gruesome discovery of Pule's lifeless body sparked public outrage, and rightly so. For more on what came out of court today, let's bring in our senior reporter, Silindelo Masikane, who's been following this case ever since it broke. Sli, take us through Shoba's application today.
So an interesting application where, of course, his lawyers are applying for leave to appeal his conviction and his sentence. He is currently serving a life sentence for plotting the murder of his 8-month pregnant girlfriend, Pule. You'd remember when her body was found hanging from a tree. We were in the middle of lockdown, and it just was shocking at just how gruesome that particular murder was. And since then, of course, we have seen her killer, the trigger man, who was found by police. He then ultimately confessed and fingered Shoba as being the one who hired him to have Pule killed, saying that, he promised me, I think it was 70,000 rand to carry out this murder because he at the time had a fiancé, and this pregnancy that Pule had was going to ultimately mess things up for him. But of course, till today, Shoba is maintaining his innocence despite the fact that he has been convicted and sentenced of the murder. And in the papers, we're hearing his lawyer saying that we believe that this court, this judge in particular, while their reasoning may not be wrong, we feel that they put too much weight on particular evidence as opposed to other evidence that may have found Shoba innocent. And they're saying that the evidence that not much weight was put on, another judge could possibly find that that evidence is more credible, and ultimately then, of course, overturn his conviction and his sentence. Now, the trick is that you have to make this leave, file this leave of appeal to the very same judge who convicted and sentenced you. So you need to convince this judge that, look, there are reasons perhaps that could convince you that another court could find Shoba innocent, or that you may have possibly erred in your judgment. And in this particular instance, they're saying that Judge Stuart Wilson relied heavily on the confession of the triggerman, saying that the court itself acknowledged that he was a liar. It acknowledged that it seemed he may have had a vendetta to settle with Shoba because he was never paid for this crime. But they're also saying that, there is another reason for another court to find that Shoba is just simply being, accused by Malepane, the triggerman, for no good reason at all. Let's just take a listen to some of those arguments.
Evidence was of such a nature. If one can start with Mr. Malepane's evidence, the approach that my lord took on his evidence and the corroboration that my lord sought for his evidence, what I'm submitting, my lord, is that another court might view that, might come to a different conclusion in that regard, whether the corroboration, which my lord found to be sufficient, to sufficiently safeguard any risks attached to accepting Mr. Malepane's evidence.
Now, any kind of appearance or development in this story must scratch open wounds all over again, especially for Tsegofatso's family. Did we see any of our family there, or Shoba's family in court?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think I would ever be saying the name Ntuthuko Shoba ever again this year, in the very least. But it seems that the family of Pule was certainly anticipating such an application. They did come to court, and interestingly enough, we did see Ntuthuko Shoba's father in particular as well in court for the hearing of this application. And of course, quite, it's just frustrating for the family, because you think you're done going to the courts, you think you're done with this particular aspect of what happened to their child, and begin that healing process, finally. But they're saying that, look, we were prepared for this, but ultimately they don't believe that there's going to be any successful, granting of this application, saying that, Shoba can apply as much as he wants for leave to appeal. They don't believe any other court would come to a different conclusion. Let's take a listen.
Not like we didn't anticipate this from Mr. Shoba, but at the same time, he's still not taking our feelings into consideration. We're talking about the loss of life here and the loss of what would have been our nephew. But at the same time, let him exercise his rights. I did say in the beginning that he can appeal until he's blue. But at the same time, I feel it's just a waste of time from his side. Look, we were beginning to get used to the idea that Ntuthuko is no more. And even some of the family members were still going through the process of counseling. But you can imagine, it's issues like this that will take a step back for us for the process of recovery to be completed. But at the same time, we just have to soldier on. We still hope that out of this exercise, everything that is best will come for us. And finally, we will be in a position whereby we can begin the process of healing without these interruptions.
Now, what happens next, Silly?
Well, at this point, we are awaiting the judgment from Judge Stuart Wilson, who said he's going to take the weekend to go through court transcripts once more, to go through the application and the reasoning behind it. And he said by 11 a.m. on Monday, he will have a decision. So Shoba will know on Monday if his leave to appeal application is granted or not.
Okay, thank you so much for that update. Silindelo Masikane on top of that story, as always. Now,